Good morning from Whitechapel. This is day 2 of the Bike Shed Moto London Show 2025. Now, I tried to start a video yesterday and it was extremely busy, and which was great, so I kind of just wanted to do a bit of a follow-up this morning. So we arrived Friday night from Yorkshire down into London King's Cross, and then across from London King's Cross into Whitechapel, and it was so easy. I haven't been to Whitechapel in a long time, and having 24 hours in Whitechapel, it has been a bit of an eye-opener, but great, really good, and it's a place that's steeped in history and everything's so handy. So last night we went and ate at the Bike Shed in Shoreditch, which was a minute that way, and to get to the Bike Shed Tobacco Docks London Show, it's about 10 minutes that way. So 10 minutes walking and literally a minute on the train to get to the Bike Shed in Shoreditch. You know, really good, fantastic. Whitechapel itself is obviously famous for Jack the Ripper, and you'll understand that a little bit more if you're into your history and any of your history buffs. But basically, there was a madman running about London in the 1800s, and he caused about 11 deaths in Spitalfields, which is kind of that way, part of the borough area of London and Whitechapel, and it's obviously got the mantra of the proper East End, mate, East End. So all a bit of an eye-opener. You've also got the Blind Beggar pub, which is famous for two well-known gangsters, Ronnie and Reggie Cray. And Ronnie Cray went into the pub and killed Jack the Heart McVitie. And again, it's an absolutely wonderful pub. I'm not saying anything about the act, but the actual pub itself, if you look inside it, although it's like a lot of pubs at the moment, in terms of what's on draft and what's there, but it is all fairly unique. Yeah, day 2 of the Bike Shed show. So join me. I'm going to head down that way, go from there. Bruno's garage. Absolutely fantastic. BMW, Boxer engine. Moto Guzzi again, and there's a lot of these. There's a lot of Moto Guzzis. I saw this one yesterday. And it is one of my favourites. Absolutely. Are you alright, fella? Absolutely beautiful. The attention to detail is amazing. Pretty similar to BMW engine. Twin, both ends, but it's absolutely perfect. Perfect bike. Absolute perfect bike. Beautiful. Beautiful. Your old cab there. I just think that was stunning. One of my favourite bikes. Cafe Racer style, of course. Absolutely stunning. Stunning. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah.
Makes sense.
I really like this as well. This kind of stood out for me. Royal Mistake. Stunning, guys. What's that blue? I won't call them a wash colour, but I love that blue. 350 Yamaha Suzuki. One's a 500. And this is Emily's from the works. Go and follow their YouTube channel. Absolutely fantastic. Another one of my favourites. Finish, sensational. Absolutely sensational. So good. Just immaculate. Again, I love this. This is absolutely fantastic. Yamaha XJ600. Cafe Racer style. The attention to detail on it is just fantastic. I love this. I love this. You spoke well. Yeah. The iconic Triumph engine. You can notice that anyway, but phew, is that exhaust? How that manufactured.
Lord, I'm ready. So sure shelter I need.
Of course, it's a hit shot. What? It's just fantastic.
Keep telling myself that I'm carry me home. Slide through and say
French lines. This weekend, one of the I'm not sure about the paint job. It's a little bit. It looks a little bit like my Sportster's job. To be fair, it's absolutely brilliant.
something seaweed.
God, bumping into people.
And also a big shout out to everybody that organizes the bike shed show as well. Trust me, I see people.
My husband's bike. I'm not even looking at my.
On you go.
So make some noise for the bike shed team, come on!
Now he's taking photos like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, oh, there goes my radio. I don't think I really need to make an introduction here, but let me welcome to the stage Russ Malkin and Dave Alexanian, and then I shall leave it to them as soon as they get here. Feel free to applause.
Thank you to Dush and Vicky Bike Shed for inviting us here today. And Dave and I are very, very honoured to be here. Unfortunately, you and Charlie can't make it. So I don't know if you noticed that, but if you've got any questions for me and Dave, and on a serious note, we've got a little film that we'd like you to watch before you meet the boys. So I don't know if Alan, you could roll the movie. Oh, wait a minute, it's actually my job. I've got the clicker. Click and see. Hang on, let's see if this goes. I'm probably, oh no. I need some help. We can organise all these things. I just needed to push it once, didn't I? I don't know if it can go backwards. We can make these movies, but we can't do presentations. Here you go.
I couldn't be happier than to be doing an album with you. It's great.
Okay, let's do it.
Very liberating. Well, this is us on the road, Charlie. This is us on the way, man.
One of the things I love the most about these trips is being in these huge spaces, you know? And the beauty of it and the vastness of it.
I just love this. I love seeing Mother Nature like this.
Oh, shit!
Funny how quickly a great morning can turn into a really crappy afternoon, isn't it?
Just keep falling over.
I've got this horrible feeling we're going to have to turn back. All of our house are just a bit of tarmac, you know? Look at this! It's a road!
Tarmac. Look how smooth it is.
You got that, because if we would have hit that, he'd be going to be a
My new friend. Completely, utterly blown away.
Ultimately, we're not any different from one another, you know? We all love our kids. We all need somewhere to sleep. We all need some food. The world isn't that big a place, and we've ridden every inch of it on the back of motorcycles.
All right, without further ado, a warm bike shed welcome.
Wow, that was an amazing little clip there. Maybe a little emotional. Actually, I got a little choked up just at the end there with our daughters, meeting our daughters, and that made me feel, you know, quite. Anyway, sorry.
Well, listen. In the spirit of all honesty, we have never done this before, so we're here to find out how it goes. We've got all of our families in the front here, which is terrific. But just to get the ball rolling, lads, how did you originally meet? You know, and how did you get into biking?
Well, we first met, Charlie and I met, we were making a movie, we're both cast in this movie called Serpent's Kiss that we shot in Ireland, in County Clare. And Charlie played, I can't even really remember the story, I was pretending to be Dutch, like a Dutch garden designer. And Charlie was my secretary. But also he knew that I was pretending. I can't remember. There was some deception, right? You were sort of the baddie. Spy. You were a spy. Yeah. And the first night we met, there was a party. It was often like a drinks thing before a movie kicks off. And at this party, I came in and Charlie came up and said, "Oh, Charley, I'm playing, I can't remember the name of your character, the secretary, and he said, I hear you ride motorbikes, and that was it. That was 30 years, I mean over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
How old's Stu? 29. Okay, 29 years old. No. Stu was just born. My daughter Clara was just born.
Yeah.
You were 6 months old, I think. She was just born. And that was it. That was the start of our friendship from then, and we've been really best buddies, ever since.
But it's funny. I mean, ever since that first conversation, I think the last conversation we had yesterday or the other day was actually about motorbikes again. So nothing much, as you said, has changed, has it?
Not really.
But I think but that was working on that film. That for me was a big change. Once I met you, and we then went on, became friends, and we did loads and loads of stuff together, didn't we? We did track days together. We did anything to do with motorbikes, and there's a photo I found somewhere the other day of
my ex-wife Ev down to Spain or something on a couple of sports tours, and then they could fly back and we would race back, and that turned into a longer daydream about going to China. My ex-wife was brought up in China. I thought we could ride to China. They could fly in, and we could have an adventure. And then when I got a world map to look at the China route, it seemed like, what would we do when we got to China? Would we just come back, or what would you do then?
Yeah.
And then, but if you keep following the line across the world map, it comes back to, it ends up in New York, and that's where Long Way Round was sort of, the idea of it was born. And that's when Charley got it.
Yeah. But it was interesting because when all that was going on, when we were, Ewan and I were talking about it, and we were sort of getting involved in this motorcycle race team, there was a period of time for me, it was a very difficult time for me, because my acting career wasn't really going the way I wanted it to go. Ewan's was steaming like a rocket up to the stratosphere. And my career, my dyslexia and everything I was really struggling to be able to learn lines, and it was starting to ruin my whole experience of acting. And so that kind of faded away, and while Ewan was doing his thing, I was starting to do painting and decorating and doing more and more building people's houses for about 10 years. And it was in that 10 years that we met on the film. And then it was, as Ewan said, he said, come by to the house. And I got this idea, and that's when Ewan had that map. And was saying, look, why don't we do this? And I remember someone saying to me once, if you wanted to convince someone to go with you on a very long trip, buy a very small map, because then you look that far. So, but that's really when it started, and just so when we're talking about it, I remember, because my career and everything was completely had gone really the wrong way, and this sort of, without realizing it, I think from you inside, it gave me this lifeline.
There was a Honda or something we tested. We've ridden the KTM, we've ridden the BMW, and we were coming back from riding, I think it was a Honda, or I can't remember, Suzuki, was it?
Valoraro.
Yeah. And in the back of the car on the way down, I just said quietly to Charley, there's really only one motorbike that's right for what we want to do. And I remember the fear in Charley's eyes, like, he just went, which one? He wanted so much for me to say KTM, and I said, well, BMW, because it really was it had been tried and tested, and people, the bike had proved itself, whereas the KTM was a brand new bike, wasn't it?
It was, and then when we did go with BMW, I think BMW Germany weren't particularly interested, and they had kind of said no. And there was a guy called Tony Jacob who was there, and he ran BMW UK Motorrad or motorcycles, but he sort of went against their one, and he put all in, didn't he? He went in and said, right, let's back it, and then everything changed, and I think after the show came out, after a period of time, I think BMW sales went up by 40-something% or something.
They went
like that.
The 48th best-selling motorcycle best-selling. But I thought the interesting story too about KTM is they had the documentary filmmaker come, which is for a 2-second story. So again, KTM's winning Dakar. We know that they can do these trips. They did have a new, I think it was a new engine in that 950 or whatever. But they said, you guys tell the story about this fella. You didn't hear for a while, and they got on the phone call, and we talk about, and we're just sitting there in one of these meetings, like, oh yeah, well, what do you want to do? We get it, we love the show, but we want to do it a little differently. We're like, well, we kind of want to keep it the same because this is kind of what we do. We're like, Russ, I think fairly said, you know, we're looking at electric bikes. But it was that was it. That's all he said, and then we continued. The meeting was like 45 minutes long. Then we didn't hear from him for 3 months. Then we get a piece of paper that said, please come to Cupertino outside of San Francisco to meet everybody from Apple. So the 4 of us arrive. They're like, oh, you got to meet Tim Cook. Tim Cook comes in. He's like, really excited about the trip, and I hear you guys are going on electric motorcycles. That's going to be awesome. And of course, we had no. And Ewan looked at me, looked at us like, electric motorcycles?
But from our point of view, when I was looking, the front of MCM was always covered with these prototypes of electric bikes. So I assumed everyone was building them.
Really
and when we went to everybody, I said, no.
I mean, there's a Zero, of course.
There was only Harley,
but that's
the converted bike, and then Rivian helped us with the cars.
It's worth telling that story because people ask how that happened, and it was just this, hey, and really, it's Ewan saying what he's saying. It's a tribute to these 2 guys saying, okay, we'll deal with it and we'll make it happen, and they did. They did that trip. Rivian did step in and put in a big electric highway. They put in a bunch of chargers and stuff to make it happen. And Harley was wonderful. But talk about electric for a minute if you want.
No, they're great. The issue was always just like, what can we do? We kept meeting people. We went to EV West in San Diego, who's a guy who makes electric components for for people that want to swap their petrol engines for electric. And everyone was saying like 70 miles. You get 70 miles really on a motorbike.
See when you're riding an American electric bike.
This heavy snow's not what we're hoping for.
We've come down at the end of winter, and then it's just dumped. Poor man's ice.
My dad was yesterday. Well, you might have looked at the weather before you went down there. And I just started lying to her. Yeah, we looked, it was spring, and it is spring here. And it was just a freak snowstorm. Just lying, because I felt he's right, I should look at the weather.
Dad's always right.
Dad's always right.
Well, you said at one point, you're like, there are penguins here, of course it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
We're basically in Antarctica at that point.
It's like Norway in the long way home, you know.
Some people have got questions. We have some microphones dotted about, I think.
Hi guys, so you've done round, you've done up, you've done down, you've done home, what's next?
What's next? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you, when you're... Okay.
No, we're all just worried about what you're going to say.
Next question.
Just really quick. But each trip you do, when you're on these long adventures, you're so in it and you love it and you're there every day and traveling. But when you get towards the end, you start to get excited about being home, and you want to. As much of you wants to finish it, but the other half of you really wants to carry on. So then you always start to talk about, why don't we do another one, or maybe next one we'll do that, or whatever. And so that by the time you come to the end, you in your psychology, in your mind, whether or not you do it or not, you've got in your mind saying, well, we can stop this one because we've got this one coming up.
So where are we going, Charlie? Come on, tell them.
No, we don't know yet. Not quite sure yet.
We are thinking about it. It's a good question, though.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Izzy? Please.
what was your biggest moment of like, what if I never met Charley, or what if I never met you, and like a bit of scenery or like a moment?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Say that again.
Front of that question. Say it again. Sorry.
What was your biggest moment, or you like a bit of scenery or something where you were like, if you thought, what if I never met Charley, or what if I never met you, and like, where would I?
Oh, I see. There was something that, on the first trip, a long way round, there was the moment when we saw our first camel. Sorry, I keep telling camel stories.